This is Zettelcast, brought to you by readers, writers, thinkers, and teachers from LiLLiPub, along with our partners in thought, our Zettelcastans. In this show, we share discoveries that our Zettelcastans have shown us.
There you go.
And compare notes on how we're using this marvelous invention in our creative work. Thank you for joining us.
All right, Brooke.
Let's do it again.
All right.
Episode 96, Capturing Time.
All right, welcome to Zettelcast number 96. My name is Mel Jeffcoat, and I am hosting this time. And for this episode, we've done a lot of work on the Roanoke project. We've done a lot of writing. We've all been sort of chaotically creating, which is wonderful. That's what you want to do at the beginning of a writing project. But it's starting to get a little confusing. And so this assignment was to help put a little bit of order in by each of us working through our characters and what we've written about them and what we figured out about them and putting it into a timeline. And we're going to mostly talk about the process of doing this and what we've learned from it. We may share a little bit from our results, but that's not going to be the focus of what we're sharing today. So how did it go, everyone?
Pretty informative.
Do tell.
Yes.
Well, I just focused on two characters, although I have a lot of them and a larger number in my sphere. And after I kind of go a little further with the two I've done, I'll come around to some of the other less mentioned characters who are sub-characters to my main ones. And I did it totally in handwriting and, filled a number of pages. And I'm glad I did because if I had started out we talked about using Excel, and if I'd started out with a little cell, I think it would have sharply limited what I said. Instead, sometimes it would just be something that would nicely fit in a Excel spreadsheet where I'm just saying, well, this happened and this happened and this happened. But on occasion, it tended to turn into a deep outline on its own. Especially for, to either recap some of the episodes that were pivotal or to outline some of the things that had not yet been established. And it was informative for me because it helped me see. One of the things I've really enjoyed about the project are setting up, answering questions like, how did that come to be? How did that happen? That sounds like either a weird coincidence or something that's highly unlikely. Why did that happen? What made that happen? And how is it that everybody didn't figure this out earlier? And those are the kind of questions that got answered for me. I had a similar experience previously, Julianne, when you and I got together and we worked out some of the timeline for how did Teresita learn to make a Bezier belt. But this time, it really came down on the page for me as to the full sequence of that, who gets which belt in the order that she makes them, and why does it take everyone so long to figure out that it's Teresita who's making them?
And so you have a working theory about why that is, that goes deeper than something that was kind of just obvious.
Yes, it was a surprising answer to the question
Nice.
for me. And of course, and the secondary surprise was not on my goal list, say, when I started the project. My goal list was to get straight about certain other things, which might include spoilers, so I won't go into them in too much detail. But that was a delightful side benefit.
Yahoo!
Well, I can follow that. I had a limited window of time to work. And so I kind of did what Kathleen did. And I just took my trusty Roanoke notebook and I pulled everything that I knew from the things that I had written and other stuff that I had seen, particularly in Deb's piece about Kelly Newberg. And what I and not knowing when that situation exactly happens with Kelly, I was able to sort of capture that information, and then that became kind of a center point hub. And I kind of feel like I'm cheating because Margaret is such a newer character that a lot of things already exist that give me things that I can hang pieces on, which really helped. So that goes along with my theory that you can't properly dive into a good story and good character development until you have a sense of time and space. And in much the way that each of us have struggled at different times with what's the time and where are we and how much of it is there, all of those questions, I feel like I was finally able to start with that center point of, okay, these two characters come face to face. Now, what happens on either side of that? And then it allows you, I literally got out my calculator and I'm like, okay, if this is summer of this year, then I'm going to go back to the beginning of that year. All right, that gave me a window. And then you can start filling things into that window, which I did. And then got the calculator out again and like, okay, her son is likely X number of years old. Okay, so that places him in time. Well, then when did she get married? Okay, so then that places that in time. So if she got married, was that during college, after college? Okay, wait a minute, where did she go to college? So every answer spawned a new question, which allowed me to place her at, and these things could all likely change. This is kind of the zero draft of her, but it places her around 47 years old. So now I know when she came, which is funny because in my head, I felt like she was much older. But when I did the math, I was like, no, that's about right. So, but again, that's having a sense of time. And I was kind of on Team Deb in that I had a much bigger sense of the time of the story than how it's actually playing out. And so pulling that lens in was so helpful because now I've gone back. I know when she was born, roughly. It's like when I wrote my novel, my main character's age shifted by 10 years in the second draft because it didn't work. And I'm like, oh crap, that's got to change. So, these are all approximations, but at least it's a place to start. And so then I listed out having all that information. Then I was able to say, okay, so her inciting incident, if you will, happens in the spring-ish, probably early, maybe late winter, but we can decide that. And then I was able to list the full accounting of her job, what her objectives are as a worker, what her objectives are as a character, what happens that's important over the heat of the summer when she's confronting the things that she needs to confront, which metaphorically made a lot of sense to me that she's facing, the Furies during the heat of the summer. So there, there's some undergirding stuff that was revealed there. And then, so it would be late summer, potentially early autumn, when she has this intersecting meeting with Kelly Newberg that then starts to change the course of how her actual character arc develops and gives her kind of a period of reckoning and recovery through the autumn, and through on out to the end of the story. So it works, man. Not to plug my upcoming course, but that's what Time Box Tools is all about. I got to live it in real time, no pun intended, because of this challenge. And it was a really cool experiment because I'm literally writing that textbook right now. And it made me not hate that project so much because I was able to see it through fresh eyes. You get to a certain depth into any writing project and you can see the finish line and you're like, it's like, I just need to get this baby out of me. But then something happens. Sometimes you find a new piece of research, you find a new detail. In this case, it was this challenge that allowed me to come at it with fresh eyes and go, holy cow, this really works. And it works really well. So I had like multiple layers of aha moments that were both energizing and comforting all at the same time. And, it just is another reason why, as writers, you think you have a handle on something, but it's so normal to be stuck and frustrated and not be able to see. I describe it as the story feels too slippery or too foggy and like I can't get the details. But just anchoring things in time and space can often give you that pathway through. You just have to lock in one thing and then you can start hanging other things on. So I don't yet know exactly how this will intersect with other characters, but at least I feel like this challenge has given me enough of a footing that now, I can use the little available pockets of time that I have and start filling in some of that drafting that needs to fill it out. So overall, I would say this challenge for me was a 10 out of 10. It was really helpful.
Great. So I'm remembering the times that a timeline has been asked for. Miss Kathleen Spracklin asked for it a long time ago, probably going on a year ago.
Uh-huh.
And um, we didn't have one. And you know, until recently, we didn't have even anything that looked like one. Um, and and then because of spoilers,
Mm.
and we've been talking, we have our regular Roanoke authors calls where we're well beyond in our discussions um, the Act One that we have primarily been writing in. And a lot of it's backstory. And a lot of that backstory is meant to figure into discoveries that happen in later acts. And so spoilers have been kind of combinatorially explosive in terms of, oop, can't go there, oop, can't go there, oop, can't go there. And so in response to that, I drafted something that may have been the thing that was written out rather than just discussed of these are the points we're trying to hit in the overall arc of the story. This is what will have happened by the end of Act One, Act Two, Act Three, Act Four, and those things, right now, Act Four is, and a miracle happens. Figuring out how we're gonna get there is fun. It's part of the fun. But so I had started doing that, and I so I've done it in a couple of places. One is I laid out this. It's the top secret document that says this is the official list of spoilers and non-spoilers with this is what happens in this act, and once we get to Act Three, this is virtually all spoiler, and we're gonna have to figure out how to talk about it over the course of writing it. Um, but also, I had created the first timeline that I had put together at all in order to try to propose where Margaret might fit in. And so I had shared that with Victoria when she introduced Margaret. It's like, oh, here's how Margaret might fit in nicely. And and I think that just enough solidity in the timeline is all we need. Right now, we don't need to know, okay, at 2:45, this thing happens, and at 3 o'clock, that thing happens, because we're not at that level of precision at all. But we certainly need to know, well, how old is this kid?
Yeah.
And
Ish.
yeah, yeah, roughly, how old is this kid? And what does that mean for him and her, And so that started to pin some things down. And so
Yeah.
what I've been doing in this exercise this week is taking everything I've written, which is um, 90% over the course of 2 days at the very beginning of the story in Act One. Um, and there's a lot that has to happen in Act One for Act One to come to its closure. Um, but seeing those things in order, and I've done it by, each chapter that I wrote, I've got it in the order in which I think that it goes and what day that it happens on, and that's helpful for me. And I think it's definitely going to be helpful for um, the co-authors, as it proved with Kathleen, who had an idea about Teresita and the Bezier belt, and we needed to figure out, all right, well, what needs to happen for Teresita to have learned what she learned,
Right.
and so we found a lot of useful. So we've got the Chronos that is pinning things down, and then we've got the Kairos, which is these are the events that instigate during that. It's really fun. So having gone through this, I think that and I'm trying to make careful use of a lot of characters. I'm also trying not to have too many characters who just show in and go away. I'm really loving the idea of that dude there that you are encouraged to just think is an idiot. Might not be. Um, so a lot of disparate things all came together for me, and I'm really delighted that we have gotten to this point where it was a problem.
Yeah.
Now, a problem I'm seeing is that for whatever reason, I think maybe it's the safety zone of Act One.
Huh.
There's a whole lot of overcrowding in backstory
Uh-huh.
right now. And I think that is because we don't necessarily see, well, what what might have happened in Act Two or Three, where that fits in just as well without it necessarily being backstory.
Uh-huh.
And those are the sorts of things that I think that we'll be working on as we um, put these timelines together and ask those questions.
And not all of the backstory will show up in the story it, as
Yeah,
such. It's
yeah,
just we know it's there so that we know how it affects the characters.
yeah. Well, in some cases, we've written things
Yeah,
that on first blush, those things that we wrote, they fit in backstory, but is that the only place where they can fit? What else can we do so that there are more options for that? That's where I'm going with that. Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah.
I don't have a timeline. I mean, I'm still having difficulty with that. I ended up doing I don't even know what to call it. Um, but for instance, my Kelly Newberg. So I have his two columns, the timeline event and what it reveals. Okay, so Kelly, childhood fascination with the hinge, and what it revealed, an insatiable curiosity. Daily visits to the hinge. pursuit of continual growth. Years of seeking new flavors of experience reveals a restlessness directed toward becoming. The Weird Science Day, the hinge reveals what Kelly cannot yet see herself. Life thereafter, growth becomes intentional rather than merely novel. And so Kelly ends up representing becoming. So that if I was going to have a single word for her, that's what it would be, becoming.
So, how did you feel about the assignment, Deb?
I still got a little hair left. I mean, yeah. At least I was able to get some events down, get some thoughts down, and hopefully I can expand this with and on an Excel sheet, can expand this to something that will help me actually have a timeline. Yeah.
It sounds like you have chronologies. You just don't have points in time in which they occur yet.
Yeah, I don't
You have this comes before that. This is where that's going. I think you should feel good about that.
Well, I tell you, I don't feel like a lost as lost as I felt initially, so I do feel like I made some progress. Absolutely. Yes. So, and I thank you actually, Mel, because literally being placed in the position to do this made me, sit down and write things down, put them on paper and to see well, I know you don't know what you're doing, but what do you know? What do you know? So let's get what you do know down. And so that's what I've shared with you and our audience today. All right.
Thank you.
Nice.
Well, I went straight to the spreadsheet because I love spreadsheets. It was just there was enough information already, even only working with a few characters, that it felt like it would be cumbersome on paper. So what I did was I went through the stories that I've written and some of my notes about backstory, and I just started fitting them together into a spreadsheet, roughly. I don't have any. There's some major events marked down, but otherwise I don't have time stamps. Just sort of these seem to be happening at about the same time. And this was a better way of approaching it than a long time ago we tried a wiki. We thought we could maybe organize all of our information with a wiki that we could all be able to edit and all be able to look at, and it did not work. It died in the cradle. And I can't speak for anybody else, but for me, part of it was the learning curve of the markup, but even more than that was the lack of structure of, how. So I put something into it and it feels like putting something into a void. Like, how does it connect? Perhaps if we had all put stuff in right away, we could have gotten a critical mass, but as it was, it just didn't work out for what we were doing. But the spreadsheet at least had everything visible. You might have to scroll to be able to see everything, but it's all on one nominal page. And so I'm envisioning, and Julianne at our author call shared the amazing spreadsheet that she has done, which puts mine to shame.
No, it doesn't.
It does. It's more intricate. It's what I it's what I would hope mine would turn into eventually. But what we can do, and what I envision doing, is having a spreadsheet, whichever one we use as a base, that we all start putting our stuff into. And we can, that way, all of us can look at the big picture at any time and say, oh, wait a minute. I thought this happened before this, but that doesn't make sense because this happens. We can see
Yeah.
those sorts of problems. In fact, I was wondering as I put this together, I knew basically how Javi's timeline worked for the things that I wrote, but Julianne's written a couple things with Javi. And I'm like, well, how do those fit in? And I'm not entirely sure that I placed them in the right place, but they are placed, and we can work with them because they're what you wrote was great, and they definitely fit into Javi's storyline and the main storyline. I'm just not entirely sure how they fit in exactly with some of what I had written.
Yeah, I was the same on those. I was like, well, feels like it needs to happen after this.
Hmm.
Does it have to? Maybe not, but it's like that was the easy. I just went for the easy thing. It probably happens some period of time after these things.
Hmm.
And um finding those areas where like no, this is starting to feel locked down and these other things are starting to feel more like the puzzle pieces that we don't know exactly fit together.
Hmm.
And we are creating them, which is awesome.
Yeah.
As you were talking about the tell me, if I'm derailing this conversation, you let me know. But as you were talking about the failure of the wiki, um, if I think about other story wikis that I am familiar with, it feels to me like those are story Bible type constructs. And we might end up wanting to create such a thing when we have a story to biblify. But what I've been doing, and I find it really, really helpful for every story that I write, um, and the last one that I wrote, it's not done yet. But every story I write, I put my name and in brackets, that's what I'm reserving for Nadia Z. The card numbers for major things that are relevant to that story. And I think that I highly recommend that practice. That one, when I said this hasn't been done yet, a lot of this little story is just a little over a page, was improvised last week, and and then figuring out, okay, well, I've got some information nuggets that are probably going to be important. Maybe not, but probably are. They have a chance to be. And those deserve cards. And so the story isn't done until I've got those, until those cards exist and the story knows the cards, the addresses of the cards. And and so the wiki feels like that level of granularity. It's all of the little bits that what did we call that thing?
Mm-hmm.
How
Yeah.
did that
Yeah.
thing work? What were the constraints of that thing? Or what did this character know at that point?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I could see the wiki being useful for recording what we've already figured out, but
Yeah,
what it wasn't useful for was helping us create in a
yeah,
coherent manner.
yeah, yeah. Too much friction.
Hmm.
Part of it was the
Mm.
wiki engine, but also it it does sort of presume that we know what we're doing.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not good for a timeline at all.
Yeah. Excel's great for that.
Excel's great for that.
Yep.
And we might find that we need layers, more than columns, maybe in some cases, especially for references to stories, because otherwise things get so wide that you can't find anything anymore. Whereas if you respect a certain column structure and replicate it through multiple worksheets, you can be on a certain cell and click over to the next sheet and go to that exact same cell and find information. The other choice, of course, is notes, but notes are so in your face.
Yeah.
And if you want notes, put them on a note layer. And that also frees us from boundaries because, if you're going to go to a specific named cell, you don't care how big and wild and unwieldy the layer that you've gone to might be, because you're going to go to that cell.
We can fit a fair bit of text into an Excel cell. There is a hard limit as to how tall you can make the rows. So if we put in too much text, you can't see it. I have this problem at work because lawyers love putting text in Excels and they like copying entire pages into a single cell and say, why can't I see it all?
What?
No, we can't make your
That
row
sounds like
bigger.
something I do.
Can't put a
That's awesome.
14-page document there either.
Yeah, but you can actually put a pretty good amount of text as long as it is less than 409 pixels high. You can do it.
Nice.
So we can fit in more than you think. I think it doesn't have to be just a little thing in the cell.
All that said, I'm not opposed at all to this notion of linking to a detail sheet.
Right. Yeah, and links to the actual stories, actual documents that we've written.
Yeah.
For more context and more details.
Right.
Yeah, I like the idea of having this definite number of columns so that each character you see immediately where the holes are.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at each character the exact same way through the spreadsheet. I think that's a wonderful set of guardrails. That's excellent. Excellent. So
Is it just that I'm not sure that we discussed the structure of the spreadsheet, but this was Mel's suggestion, and so I transposed my original thing so to follow it, which is each character has a column, and the events of the story happen down in rows. And Deb, I think you and I both had this kind of instinctive, oh, timelines go this way. But it is it's a much better structure to do it the other way. And I agree, I don't know, well, Victoria, you're already very strong at asking yourself a million questions about a character. But the hint of, well, was Margaret born at age 47?
Yeah.
How'd she get to be who she is? That and her education and all of those things. It's those some people's education are going to be extremely pertinent.
Yeah.
For example, favorite flavor of ice cream? Don't know.
But I think we all know that we as the author need to know a lot more than the reader does. And the reader needs to trust that we know the answers. Even if the reader never learns those answers, they need to trust that we do. And I think that's what we're getting at.
Yeah. Yeah. That these people are real to us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, where can people go? Uh-oh, are we ready?
In the new library.
Where can people go if they'd like to learn more?
You can come to LiLLiPub.org. It's where we hang out when we're not in YouTube land. LiLLiPub.org. It's the best place for writers or readers. See you there.
Yes.
See you next time.
Yep.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.